This is the download recap from Sounds Profitable, the most important news from this week and why it matters to people in the business of podcasting. I'm Gavin Gaddis. The download recap is brought to you by Podscribe. You can find out more at podscribe.com. This week, selling the podcast mindset, Audioboom acquires UK podcast leader Adelicious. After another shutout, do creators need the Emmys? The power of podcast search optimization, an interview with Jennifer Hahn. Google now indexes Instagram, and this is a rare bright spot in a tough Hollywood job market. Let's get started. Here's a quick one to start off with. Podcasting platform Audioboom has acquired Adelicious. The resulting combination is set to make one of the UK's largest locally produced podcast networks, with an aggregate 125 million monthly downloads and video views across platforms. Adelicious CEO Andrew Goldsmith is set to become president of a consolidated UK division under the Adelicious brand, as well as joining the Audioboom executive team. This week, Tom Webster looks at some data from Unlock the Power of Purpose-Driven Podcasting, a new study focusing on two of the fastest-growing segments of podcast audiences, people consuming health and fitness podcasts and self-improvement consumers. In addition to their growth independent of each other, the report finds 45% of health and fitness listeners also consume self-improvement podcasts and 44% in the opposite direction. A collection of Webster's favorite stats focusing on these two segments. Both value podcasting as something that keeps them company. 72% of health and fitness, 73% of self-improvement audiences agree. 74% of health and fitness and 72% of self-improvement say they value podcasts as a way to learn about new hobbies, both of which are significantly higher scores than the average podcast consumer. Finally, 78% of health and fitness listeners and 73% of self-improvement listeners recommend podcasts to their social circles. A quote from the article, quote, "On that last data point, these audiences aren't just consumers, they're evangelists. They're naturally inclined to share content that has improved their lives, which creates organic word-of-mouth amplification that most advertisers can only dream of. This recommendation behavior also speaks to something deeper in these audiences. They're not just trying to improve themselves, they're trying to improve their communities. They understand that wellness is contagious and they want people around them to benefit from the same insights and motivation they've found." End quote. Citing Carol Dweck's book Mindset, Webster establishes two mindsets: fixed mindsets and growth mindsets. The former being traditional advertising's usual methodology: sell a product that will solve a consumer's problem or make them feel better about how they already are. Growth mindset audiences, conversely, want something to make them better tomorrow. Instead of quick fixes, growth mindset folks are investing in long-term transformation. With that in mind, wellness content represents a politically neutral and unpolarized form of media, simply focusing on bettering health, habits, and mindset. With that comes an audience who is familiar with and actively engaging in the practices of investing in something long-term. An audience not motivated by impulse purchases, who have higher household incomes than average, and are naturally inclined to evangelize discoveries they make to others. And with their healthy crossover rate, campaigns run across both genres could achieve great message reinforcement with high-value prospective customers. Back in March at a Variety South by Southwest event, YouTuber Rhett McLaughlin highlighted the disconnect between the traditional TV ecosystem and creator content, such as the disproportionate awards and advertiser attention spent on traditional TV versus comparable, if not better performing, YouTube content. A quote from McLaughlin at the event, quote, "If you look at where the brands are putting their money and the way they value a set of eyeballs watching The Tonight Show versus watching Good Mythical Morning, it still doesn't make any sense. One of the reasons for that is brands and culture look to the Academy to know what they think is cool." End quote. Now, Emmy nominations have been announced, and for a second year running, despite energetic lobbying, content creators are not in the running. Hot Ones host Sean Evans, face of the massive YouTube celebrity interview series, was locked out of joining Colbert, Kimmel, and Stewart in nominations for Outstanding Talk Show. Meanwhile, Good Mythical Morning did not get into outstanding short-form comedy, drama, or variety series, a category largely dominated by web companions of unscripted TV shows. Even with McLaughlin's sentiments about brands and culture looking to the Academy for where to take their cues, the fact remains that some content creators have consistent audiences that rival, if not surpass that, of their TV counterparts. The question now becomes, has the Emmys reached a tipping point where possibly they need to bring content creators into the fold more than content creators need their approval? OSHA CMO Jennifer Hahn recently recorded an interview with Sounds Profitable discussing what the platform does and the tools it provides to podcasters to make their shows discoverable. A quote from Hahn, quote, "Today, when people talk about growth, it's mostly about ads or word of mouth. But on one side, ads are expensive. And once the spend stops, the effect quickly fades. Word of mouth is neither controllable nor predictable, and it requires already having a minimum level of audience. At OSHA, we believe podcasting should be treated like any serious brand strategy. As a marketer with over 15 years of experience, I see it clearly. Audience growth is a funnel with three main stages: awareness, acquisition, and retention. We are building the platform that gives podcast publishers real control through data and efficient actions at every stage of that funnel with advanced integration tools that go far beyond hosting." End quote. With proper PSO, podcast search optimization, shows are more likely to actually pop up in search results for terms besides the exact title. Hahn points to a recent case study published by OSHA in which they worked with BBC Studios, during which the PSO that OSHA used caused Spotify to become the second highest discovery channel for that podcast. Got another short one for you here. Earmax Media co-founder Andy Maxwell highlights a new update to Google Search and the Gemini AI overviews. In a recent update, Google has started indexing and sourcing Instagram content, a move that could be a boon for podcast discovery and advertising. Maxwell uses the example of a listener who remembers a NordVPN sponsorship that a podcast did, but didn't click the link in the description. In this hypothetical, Maxwell took screenshots of if someone had searched the name of that podcast and the word NordVPN. Due to that podcast having posted clips to Instagram with the NordVPN sponsorship mention, Google was able to quickly provide a result that goes directly to a source with the link, facilitating what potentially could have been a lost consumer trying to make it back to a promo code they otherwise wouldn't have found. For today's final top story, the LA Times covers the thriving industry of filming professional-grade YouTube videos, social media footage, and podcasts. YouTube channel turned production company Darman Studios has a complement of 75 full-time employees, with 15 more slated to be added this year. Pave Studios is looking to add 16 full-time workers to its staff of 67 contractors and employees. New jobs that are needed in the Hollywood area. A quote from the article, quote, "The growth in Southern California influencer businesses is a boon to the local production economy that is otherwise struggling. LA County saw a 27% decline in 108,564 employees from 2022 to 2024 in the motion picture and sound recording industries, according to data from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics." End quote. As YouTube gains more traction on smart TVs and becomes default television for many consumers, so too grows the production requirements and crews needed to make those video podcasts and episodic video content happen at scale. Finally, it's time for my quick hits. These are articles that didn't quite make the cut for full coverage today, but I still say are worth including in your weekend reading. First up, Spreaker will now have scalable programmatic host-read ad inventory read by a generative AI host, thanks to a new partnership between parent company Triton Digital and ecos.ai. Mopod has announced some upgrades to charts.mopod.com, including Spotify chart positions and a new partnership with Pod News that will deliver editorial highlights directly on charts.mopod, as well as the ability to get Pod News alerts when you sign up for Mopod chart updates. Acast has a new case study of their work with KFC Australia, in which Acast leveraged host-read podcast ads and social media clips to advertise KFC's hot and spicy menu. And podcast production company Kaleidoscope has raised $5 million in Series A funding and aims to both produce more original podcasts as well as turn existing content into movie and TV adaptations. That was The Download, brought to you by Sounds Profitable. I know I went through today's stories fast, so be sure to check out the links to every article I mentioned, which you can find with a link right in the podcast description or by going to the download section of soundsprofitable.com. I'm Gavin Gaddis. Our producers are myself, Brian Barletta, and Tom Webster. Special thanks, as always, to you for sticking with me as I brought you the top stories you might have missed this week. Robot?
Download complete.